Hi, I'm Susan Keefe from Rhubarb Cod, and today I'm overthinking Irish soda bread. I'm super excited about today's recipe for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's such a simple recipe, and after the previous episode of Overthinking Classics, I need an easy win. Number two, this bread calls for only a handful of ingredients and they're all incredibly easy to find. And number three, I have a ton of nostalgia around it. When I was young, my family would always bake a loaf of Irish soda bread on Sunday mornings. We'd serve it hot from the oven and our table would be filled with condiments, cheeses, and spreads. And from there, you charted your own flavor journey. When I was really little, it was just butter, but I promise I've grown since then. So that's my personal history with what my mom loves to call a giant tea biscuit. But what are the bread's actual origins? A soda bread is a variety of quick bread made with sodium bicarbonate, or A soda bread is a variety of quick bread made with sodium bicarbonate. Bicodium cybobidate. I did not do well in chemistry, ironically. Maybe if they had made it more about food. I think we made ice cream once. Should have done it every day. Toast marshmallows over the Bunsen burner. A soda bread is a variety of quick bread made with sodium bicarbonate, also known as baking soda, bicarb, or bread soda. Although soda bread is largely associated with Ireland, the first soda breads were actually baked by Native Americans, who were the first to use something called pearl ash to use as an alternative leavener to yeast. Pearl ash is created by baking potash from wood ashes in a large kiln to remove impurities, resulting in a white powder that's largely comprised of potassium carbonate. Irish soda bread didn't exist prior to the 1830s, when baking soda was introduced to the country. Its popularity skyrocketed because it was so cost-effective to make, a very good thing when you're living in a country stricken with famine. In its barest form, Irish soda bread boasts only 4 ingredients: flour, salt, buttermilk or soured milk, and baking soda. And because most Irish families didn't have access to an oven, the Irish soda bread was favored because it could be easily baked in a pot on an open hearth. The telltale texture of Irish soda bread is the result of the baking soda's reaction to the acid in the buttermilk or soured milk, resulting in a soft interior and a hard, crisp outer crust. Don't worry, the loaf we'll be making today won't be nearly as austere. We will be adding egg, butter, and sugar for some added richness. It's what my family always did, and I think we're better for it. Start by preheating your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Place a large cast iron skillet in the oven. It will heat up alongside the oven. Pour 4 cups of all-purpose flour into a fine mesh strainer fitted over a large bowl. I like to sift my dry ingredients before mixing them. I think it results in a lighter crumb. You can sub 2 cups of the flour for whole wheat.
He can't take that.
Just like white flour or bust. What an affront. I'm out of here. You can sub 2 cups of the flour for whole wheat if you wish. I wouldn't add more than this though, the loaf gets overly dense. To the flour, add 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 1/4 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now this is where the intense amount of variation comes in. According to The Joy of Cooking, you can add up to 5 tablespoons of sugar in order to make something they refer to as a tea loaf. And while none of the other recipes I came across alluded to 2 different forms of Irish soda bread, the amount of sugar they each used varied wildly. Most recipes were in the 2 to 3 tablespoon range, and some called for as much as 5 to 6, and some called for none at all. My family's Irish soda bread always had a little sweetness to it, but it definitely teetered more towards the savory side. So I held true to my nostalgia and left it at 2 tablespoons. The next potential controversy is the inclusion of baking powder. To call it Irish soda bread, you have to use baking soda, but baking powder, not so much. I found a ton of recipes that only called for baking soda. America's Test Kitchen threw me a curveball by calling for baking soda and cream of tartar. But after doing a little bit of research, I discovered that baking powder is baking soda mixed with cream of tartar and cornstarch. So suddenly the America's Test Kitchen recipe didn't seem so odd. In the end, I went with 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I like the security and promised lightness of using 2 leaveners instead of 1. And I'm a little afraid of overdoing it with the baking soda and tasting it. I have a particular batch of pancakes that haunts my dreams. The baking soda and buttermilk create that initial burst of carbon dioxide to lift the bread, while the baking powder is a slightly mellower leavener that just adds to its height. While the cornstarch and cream of tartar in the baking powder creates a slightly more tender crumb. To the dry ingredients, add a 1/4 cup of cold unsalted butter cut into cubes. Work the butter into the dry ingredients by rubbing the cubes between your thumbs and index fingers to create little butter leaves. Now this is the point when you would add your mix-ins, raisins or caraway seeds, anything you fancy. I generally make plain Jane loaves, but if you're looking to gussy things up, feel free to add citrus zest, your favorite dried fruit, or some herbs. Once your mix-ins are integrated, set the dry ingredients aside. In a separate bowl, whisk to combine 1½ cups of buttermilk and 1 egg. Form a well in the center of the dry ingredients and add the buttermilk mixture to the center. Start working the dry ingredients into the wet using a wooden spoon. Once a loose dough forms, turn it onto the counter and lightly knead it into a cohesive loaf. It shouldn't be smooth though. It should still be a little lumpy. Resist the urge to overmix or overknead. Take the cast iron skillet out of the oven and carefully line it with parchment paper. Add the loaf to the center of the pan. Now for giving the Irish soda bread its telltale appearance. Score the top of your Irish soda bread with a large X. Make sure your cuts are at least 1/2 inch deep. It helps to use a serrated knife for this. There is, of course, superstition and religious meaning behind the cross on top of the Irish soda bread. The cross is meant to let the devil out of the bread, basically to banish evil spirits and fairies from the household. But the cross serves a practical purpose as well. Irish soda bread rises very quickly, so the cross reduces the surface tension on the loaf, so it can expand more easily without cracking. The X also allows the heat of the oven to better penetrate the center of the dense loaf, resulting in a more evenly cooked bread. Place the Irish soda bread in the oven and bake for 45 to 50 minutes, or until golden. Transfer the soda bread to a cooling rack and let rest for 10 minutes before slicing and serving. How you top your Irish soda bread is kind of like how you order your eggs. It's deeply personal, but here are a few of my favorite combos. Butter, always classic, always delicious. Or you can up the ante and add a slab of Irish cheddar. Or you can really ham it up and add some prosciutto or coppa. Back bacon is also very delicious. For those who prefer sweet and savory, salted butter and jam is always a classic. And if you want to be a real maritimer about it, you can douse that slice in molasses. And finally, my personal favorite, a slab of Irish cheddar and a dollop of raspberry jam. It's salty, sweet, sharp, and buttery. It covers all the bases. And that's all I could think to overthink about Irish soda bread. I hope you try this one, and if you do give it a go, let me know how it went in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to this channel. I release a new recipe every week and a ton of goodies along the way. Thank you for baking with me. I'll see you all again soon.